Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Neil Galve. I'm a registered nurse and I do have a degree in medical surgical nursing. I create my nursing educational videos to help nursing students or nursing professionals like you with their studies. If that is something that you are interested in, please make sure to subscribe now. Hit that notification bell so that you will be the very first to watch my newest uploads. Also, don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up and share with your friends because that will really help me know that you like to see more content like this. Without further ado, nurses, let's jump into the video. Isang panibagong anatomy and physiology discussion nga ang alay ko sa inyo for today. And this, like you see on the title, like you see on the video, this is the part 3 of our nervous system. And we are going to talk about central nervous system, the brain. Part 3 na nga po ito ng ating continuous discussion about our nervous system. Ngayon, kung hindi mo pa napapanood yung part 1 and part 2 ng nervous system discussion natin, kung saan hinimay-himay natin yung parts ng nervous system, I'll be putting the actual playlist link on the description box together with the other playlist I have under anatomy and physiology, and also all of the nursing educational videos I have on my channel. All you gotta do is to check them out and listen to them, learn, and watch them, because that is all for you. If I'm not mistaken, I have probably 500 lecture materials on this channel alone. That is for nursing education alone. Kaya gamitin mo na yon, use it for your advantage. At tulungan mo na nga akong i-spread ang news about my channel kasi nga, you guys, a special announcement, we are really moving towards 20,000 subscribers so fast. I cannot. You guys are so amazing. Thank you so much po. Maraming salamat sa patuloy na pag-subscribe, pag-share nyo, pag-tag nyo sa akin, pag-send nyo sa akin ng email, pag-follow nyo sa akin sa mga social media accounts ko. Maraming salamat po. Hindi ko man kayo nare-replyan lahat, wag sasama yung loob, because I'm really trying to accommodate all of you guys. Kung hindi ko man kayo ma-replyan, don't worry kasi nababasa ko po. I read all of your comments every single day. And gusto ko malaman mo, ikaw na nakikinig ngayon, ikaw na nanonood ngayon sa video na ito, na I see you, I love you, I appreciate you, and I'm so thankful to you. Maraming salamat po. Ngayon, ano pa bang gusto ko sabihin? I decided to create parts, like split the nervous system into different parts hanggang sa matapos natin siya. Only because I feel like this is one of the fascinating, if not the most fascinating system in our body. And I really want us to have a, thorough discussion when it comes to our nervous system. Kasi napaka complex nitong type of system na to. So, I want to split it into parts para meron tayong full mastery. Hindi ito yung first ANAFI discussion and lecture system na diniscuss ko sa channel ko. Marami na. I have endocrine, I have skeletal, digestive, if I'm not mistaken. Napakarami na nga po. Panoorin mo sila. Lahat yon ay nasa anatomy and physiology playlist. So, kung interesado ka doon, whenever the icon button pops out, click the one out because I'll be putting it there. Ngayon, ano pa ba? This is going to be quick, hopefully. We're going to discuss all about the brain. This video alone is all about the brain, which is our central nervous system, part of our central nervous system, because we only have two parts for our that builds our central nervous system. That is our brain and the spinal cord. For this particular video, we're going to discuss about the brain. All right? So this is part 3. Now, let me discuss to you. Mag-proceed na tayo. During embryonic development, the CNS first appears as a simple tube. The neural tube, which extends down the dorsal median plan, of the developing embryo's body. Because the brain is the largest and the most complex mass of nervous tissue in the body, it is commonly discussed in terms of its four major regions, which is what we're gonna have for today. Four major regions nga ang i-discuss natin when it comes to our brain. We have cerebral hemisphere, diencephalon, brainstem, and cerebellum. Okay? Huwag kayo mag-alala kasi iisa-isahin natin sila mamaya. Ngayon, before further proceed, gusto ko lang i-announce na kung hindi mo pa ako fina-follow sa mga social media accounts ko, I have basically everything. It's all in Neil Galve, except for my TikTok account, which is Neil Galve Official. I-like mo na itong video na to kasi para malaman ko, more likes means you guys are enjoying and you guys want me to create more. Share this to your social media platforms. This video presentation, this lecture material is also going to be available on my Facebook page. It's Neil Galve. I have a 3 a.m. conversation, a podcast channel available on Anchor and Spotify. It's all about wellness and wellness, mental health, spirituality. Check them out because I just uploaded a video yesterday. I mean, an episode yesterday. Check them out because that episode is so amazing. You guys are going to learn something and enjoy it. And I know that all of you guys will be related to that episode. Okay, so mag-proceed na tayo. Let me share to you the objectives for our today's discussion. Alright, so we're gonna discuss the four major parts of the brain. Alright, we have cerebral hemisphere, diencephalon, brainstem, and cerebellum. Each major parts of the brain have subparts or subcategories or subdivisions. So that's why I made like a specific video discussing about the brain kasi ayoko kayong malilito. Okay? So, four major parts of the brain: cerebral hemisphere, diencephalon, brainstem, and cerebellum. Period. Okay? Mag-proceed na tayo. Let's begin with our cerebral hemisphere. Cerebral hemisphere. Huwag malilito, nasa brain lang tayo ha. So, cerebral hemisphere, the paired cerebral hemisphere, collectively called cerebrum. Ito siya, itong buong ito, that is called your cerebrum. Now, are the most superior part of the brain and together are a good deal larger than the other three brain regions combined. Your cerebral hemispheres have 16 major parts. Subparts. So cerebral hemisphere have 16 major parts, which is we're going to discuss them in details on the following slides. All right? Mag-proceed na tayo. So, one of the 16 parts of your cerebral hemisphere, cerebrum, is the gyri. Sa gyri, the entire surface of the cerebral hemisphere exhibits elevated ridges of tissue called gyri, separated by shallow grooves called sulci. When you think about gyri, you will think about the next part, the subparts, which is your sulci. Your gyri is the one that separates shallow grooves called sulci. It separates. It is the ridges. This is the gyri. The one that separates the left and right hemisphere of the brain. Alright? Now we have your fissures. Fissures, less numerous, are the deeper grooves of tissue called fissures, which separate large regions of the brain. The cerebral hemispheres are separated by a single deep tissue, the longitudinal tissue. By the way, this is your fissures, your longitudinal features. Let me correct myself. This is the gyri. This one, the small parts. The one that separates the brain from left and right, that's your fissures, longitudinal fissures. The gyri is where you can find the sulci, shallow grooves. Itong parang mga ukang-ukang ito. Okay? Na may nabasa akong libro na ang brain daw natin is like consistency of a tofu. Para lang daw siyang tofu. Parang, ano bang tofu sa Tagalog? Tofu. Yeah. So, ganun siya. Napaka-fragile niya, hindi ba? Next, we have your lobes. Now, other fissures of sulci divide each hemisphere into a number of lobes named for the cranial bones that lie over them. We have your regions of cerebral hemisphere. Each cerebral hemisphere has 3 basic regions. Ano-ano yon? You have a superficial cortex or gray matter, an internal white matter, and the basal nuclei. Superficial, that's your cortex of gray matter. You have your white matter, which is the internal part. The end, we have your basal nuclei. When you think about the regions of cerebral hemisphere, you are talking about the cortex, the white matter, and the basal nuclei. Once again, these are just the 4 out of the 16 subparts of your cerebral hemisphere. Alright? Next, mag-proceed na tayo. Ano-ano pa yon? Yung mga parts ng cerebral hemisphere mo, you have your cerebral cortex. Anong nilalaman ng cerebral cortex mo? Ano yung makikita mo dito? Cerebral cortex is the one that is responsible for speech, memory, logical and emotional response, as well as consciousness, interpretation of sensation, and voluntary movement are all functions of the neurons of the cerebral cortex. So sa lahat ng may kinalaman sa emotion, sa speech, sa interpretation, sa consciousness, sa sensation, voluntary movements, not involuntary, but when we talk about voluntary movements that involves your skeletal muscles, that is the neurons of your cerebral cortex. We have your parietal lobe. The primary somatic sensory area. When you think about parietal lobe, you think about one specific anatomical parts of the brain, which is your primary somatic sensory area. Anong ibig sabihin nito? It is located in the parietal lobe posterior to the central sulcus. Impulses traveling from the body's sensory receptors are localized and interpreted in this area. Ano yung mga impulse dito? Sensory receptors. Alright, sense of touch, sense of hearing, sense of vision. Lahat ng mga impulse na yon nagpapass through sa somatic sensory area. Next, you have your occipital lobe. The visual area is located in the posterior part of the occipital lobe. Pag sinabi mong occipital lobe, this is your occipital lobe. Alright? This is your parietal lobe. Frontal lobe, the orange one, and temporal lobe. Sa occipital lobe, dyan ang houses the visual neurons. So when you think about your eyes, when you think about interpretation of whatever it is that you see, lahat yon ay from the eyes nagta-travel papunta sa visual lobe, sa occipital lobe. Okay? Now we have your temporal lobe. This is your temporal lobe, the violet one. Temporal lobe, the auditory area. This houses all the auditory and olfactory neurons of the brain. Meaning, lahat na may kinalaman sa pandinig at pangamoy. Now, the auditory area is the temporal lobe bordering the lateral sulcus, and the olfactory area is found deep inside the temporal lobe. So, two areas primary functions of the human body that houses the temporal lobe. You have your auditory and olfactory. Alright? Malinaw ba yun? Malinaw. Mag-proceed na tayo. We have, nakakailan na ba tayo? So, 4, 8. So, we have this is still the parts of the cerebral hemisphere, diba? Huwag malilito, ha? Baka nalilito kayo. Cerebral hemisphere pa lang tayo. We're discussing the subparts. Alright? Now, we have your frontal lobe. Frontal lobe, I want you to think about the primary motor area, motor, paggalaw, which allows us to consciously move our skeletal muscles in, skeletal muscles. Now, this is located anterior to the central sulcus in the frontal lobe. Frontal area, this. Okay? Now, we have your pyramidal tract. Ano tong pyramidal tract? Ito po siya. The axons of these motor neurons from the major voluntary motor tract, the corticospinal or pyramidal tract, which descends to the cord. When you think about the pyramidal tract, you are thinking about the corticospinal or the pyramidal tract. We have your Broca's area. Now, yung Broca's area na yun, ito, Broca's area and the Wernicke's area. Broca's area, specialized cortical area that is very involved in our ability to speak. So when you think about me, the one I'm doing now, I'm talking to you, I'm talking over the microphone. So that is my Broca's area. The Broca's area is found at the base of the precentral gyrus and the gyrus anterior to the central sulcus. Ano yung Broca's area? Cortical area that is very involved in our ability to speak. Now, speech area. Speech area is located in the junction of the temporal and parietal and occipital lobes. The speech area allows one to sound out words. Okay? Alright. Next, mag-proceed na tayo. Ano-ano pa yung mga subparts ng cerebral hemisphere? We have your cerebral white matter. Now, the cerebral white matter, the deeper cerebral white matter, is composed of fiber tracts carrying impulses to form and within the cortex, cerebral white matter. You have your corpus callosum. One very large fiber tract, the corpus callosum, connect the cerebral or the cerebral hemisphere, such as fiber tracts are called commissures or commissures. Sorry, wala palang end doon. Commissures. Okie doke. Okie doke. Next, you have your fiber tracts. The fiber tracts association fiber tracts connect areas within a hemisphere, and projection fiber tracts connect the cerebrum with the lower CNS centers. All right? So that is your fiber tracts. We have your basal nuclei. Now, there are several islands of gray matter called the basal nuclei or basal ganglia. Buried deep within the white matter of the cerebral hemispheres, it helps regulate the voluntary motor activities by modifying instructions sent to the skeletal muscles by the primary motor cortex. Basal nuclei, you're thinking about basal ganglia. Alright? So sa gray matter natin, 40% of the brain. White matter natin, it's made up of the 60% of our brain. Okay? So ito po yung human basal ganglia. Gamitin mo itong mga visual presentation na to para mas lalo mag-stick sa'yo yung information, ha? Ito yung sinasabi kong fiber tracts. Alright? Association fiber tracts connect areas within the hemisphere. Okay? Alright. Malinaw ba sa inyo yung cerebral hemisphere and its subparts? Malinaw. Balik-balikan mo lang. Next, mag-proceed na tayo. We are going to discuss about diencephalon. Now, the diencephalon or interbrain sits atop the brainstem and is enclosed by cerebral hemisphere. So sa loob ng cerebral hemisphere, makikita mo ang diencephalon. Huwag ka mag-alala. Tatalakayin natin sila isa-isa. Alright. So, your diencephalon have 4 subparts. Okay? We have, the first one is your thalamus. The thalamus, which is encloses the shallow third ventricle of the brain, is a relay station for sensory impulses passing upward to the sensory cortex. You have your hypothalamus. When you think about hypothalamus, you think about the limbic system. The hypothalamus makes up the floor of the diencephalon. It is an important autonomic nervous system center because it plays a role in the regulation of the body temperature. Body temperature, hypothalamus. Remember that. Water balance, dehydration, you think about overflow fluid, you think about hypothalamus. And metabolism, mabagal na metabolism, mabilis na metabolism, that's your hypothalamus's role. It is also the center for many drives and emotions, and as such, it is an important part and is so-called limbic system or emotional visceral brain. The hypothalamus also regulates the pituitary gland and produces two hormones of its own. Alright? Malinaw ba yon? Malinaw. Next, we have your mammillary bodies. Wag malilito ha, nasaan na ba tayo na nasa diencephalon pa rin tayo? Tapos na tayo sa cerebral hemisphere. Tinidiscuss na natin yung diencephalon. Now, the mammillary bodies reflect centers involved in olfactory, the sense of smell, bulge from the floor of the hypothalamus posterior to the pituitary gland. Now, we have your epithalamus. When you think about epithalamus, you think about this particular subpart, pineal body and choroid plexus. Ano ba to? Now, the epithalamus forms the roof of the third ventricle. Important parts of the epithalamus are the pineal body, part of the endocrine system, and the choroid plexus of the third ventricle, which forms the cerebrospinal fluid. The choroid plexus is the one who forms what? The cerebrospinal fluid. The cerebrospinal fluid, that is the one that protects the central nervous system from the external injury or external stimuli. Diba yun yung nag-i-insulate, nagpo-provide ng nourishment sa ating brain, CSF. Alright? Alright. So once again, these are the subparts of your diencephalon, your internal brain. Alright? So from the cerebral hemisphere, pumasok tayo papunta sa inner part of the brain. Alright? Nasa loob. Cerebral hemisphere. Nasa loob na tayo. Internal brain. Alright? Alright. Next part of your central nervous system is what we call the brainstem. The brainstem is about the size of a thumb. So tingnan mo yung thumb mo. That is the size of your brainstem. Now, thumb in a diameter and approximately 3 inches long. Alright? So, discuss na natin ito. So, sa ating brainstem, we have 3 subparts. This is your brainstem, huh? So, in terms of structures, its structures are the midbrain, pons, and medulla oblongata. Ano-ano ulit yon? Ang structures ng midbrain mo, ng brainstem mo, sorry. Brainstem mo are only 3 parts. You have your midbrain, pons, and medulla oblongata. Ano yung midbrain? When you think about midbrain, you think about cerebral peduncles. Alright? So the midbrain extends from the mammillary bodies to the pons inferiorly. It is composed of 2 bulging fiber tracts, the cerebral peduncles, which convey descending and ascending impulse. Ascending and descending impulses, you think about your cerebral peduncles. You have your corpora quadrigemina. Now, dorsally located are 4 rounded protrusions called the corpora quadrigemina because they remind some anatomists of 2 pairs of twins. These bulging nuclei are reflex centers and involved in vision and hearing. Reflex centers, vision and hearing centers, you think about your corpora quadrigemina. Once again, this is a brief discussion or brief lecture about your brain stem. Malinaw ba yon? Malinaw. Mag-proceed na tayo. Nasa brainstem pa rin tayo ha. I-discuss na natin sila. Remember sa brainstem mo makikita ang ating pons. Now the pons is a rounded structure that protrudes just below the midbrain. And this area of the brainstem is mostly fiber tracts. However, it does have important nuclei involved in the control of breathing. The one that controls your RR, that's your pons. All right. Medulla oblongata. The medulla oblongata is the most inferior part of the brainstem. It contains nuclei that regulate vital visceral activities. It contains centers that control heart rate, blood pressure, breathing, swallowing, and vomiting, among others. The one that controls these following activities, visceral activities of the body, blood pressure, breathing, swallowing, vomiting, a heart rate, that controls by your medulla oblongata. Napaka-importante, di ba? Next, you have your reticular formation. Huwag malilito. Nasaan na tayo? Nasaan na tayo? Nasa brainstem pa tayo ha. Brainstem na tayo. RAS. Narinig nyo na to, RAS, reticular formation, activating system, reticular formation, reticular activating system. Now, your reticular formation extending the entire length of the brainstem is a diffuse mass of gray matter. The reticular formation, the neurons of the reticular formation are involved in motor control or the visceral organs. Special group of reticular formation neurons, the reticular activating system or your RAS, plays a role in consciousness and awake and sleep cycles. The one that is responsible for your circadian rhythm. Alam niyo yun? That is your RAS. The one that is responsible for patterns, for consciousness, for habits. That is your RAS. Diba? Ito yung, alam ko may field of study na inaral nila yung RAS and how is this going to affect in building habits of a person. This is your RAS. So once again, these are the parts of your brainstem, ha? Malinaw ba yon? Malinaw. Very good. Mag-proceed na tayo. This is your cerebellum. All right, which is going to be the last part of the four major parts of the brain. Cerebellum. The large cauliflower-like cerebellum projects dorsally from and under the occipital lobe of the cerebrum. So wag malilito kasi tatalakayin natin sila isa-isa. Eto na. Now, in terms of structures, we're going to discuss this one. Structures like a cerebrum. The cerebellum has two hemispheres and a convoluted surface. It also has an outer cortex made up of gray matter and an inner region of white matter. Function naman. The cerebellum provides precise timing for skeletal muscle activity and controls our balance and equilibrium. Skeletal muscle activity, balance and equilibrium, you think about what? Cerebellum. In terms of coverage, fibers reach the cerebellum from the equilibrium apparatus of the inner ear, the eye, and the proprioceptors of the skeletal muscles and tendons and many other areas. Guys, tingnan nyo tong illustration na to. I put an illustration that differentiates cerebellum and cerebrum. Cerebrum itong buong to. Cerebellum ito. Okay? Again, cerebellum itong buong ulo. Cerebral hemisphere. Cerebellum is the part of the cerebrum. Itong maliit na part na ito. Huwag malilito. Thank you so much, you guys, for watching. I hope you learned something today. Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more nursing educational videos. Let me know if you have other nursing topics that you want us to do. Comment it down below. Abangan nyo nga po yung upload natin this coming Friday because that is going to be amazing. And I'd just like to greet everyone I would just like to thank everybody who, if you made it this far, for watching and learning with me today. Tulungan nyo na nga ako, ipamalitan nyo na nga sa Radyong Sira ang pinakabago, pinaka-fresh, at ang pinakalibreng nursing review center sa balat ng YouTube. Follow me on all my other social media accounts. Everything is at Neil Galve, except for my TikTok account, which is Neil Galve Official. I have a Facebook page, it's Neil Galve. I have a podcast channel, it's 3 a.m. Conversation with Neil Galve. All of the links to my social media accounts is going to be on the description box. Check them out. That's all for you. And just in case nobody told you this for today, nobody said this to you, I love you. I'm proud of you. And I can wait for your dreams to come true. I'll see you again next. See you again next upload. And you have a good one.